so excited to have you here with us tonight. We're going to be interviewing and hearing from a legendary casting director tonight, Lisa London. And I'm Kathleen Cooke. I am the founder of Influence Women, and I am excited to have you here joining us from all over the country, all over the world tonight. Here's a little bit about Lisa that you should know about Lisa, and I'm going to read her bio for you. Lisa is one of the most successful casting agents in all of Los Angeles today. She's known for her incredible eye for talent and putting together an amazing ensemble of talent for many different projects. She and her partner, Catherine Stroud, have founded London Stroud Casting, and they've cast over 100 films and television shows, just a few there. Lisa has cast many notable actors early on in their careers, actors that you may have heard a little bit about, actors like Emma Stone and Miley Cyrus, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston, Selena Gomez, Jonah Hill, and many more who have gone on to be major stars. She's recently cast a number of faith-focused films as well, including Switched, then The Greatest Inheritance for writers and producers Alexandra Boylan, along with her sister Andrea Polinazic. And by the way, both of these women, Alexandra and Andrea, are both Influence Women's executive members. Lisa has also cast PureFlix films, Daughters, Strong Fathers, Nothing is Impossible, and the upcoming series, Destination Heaven. Lisa grew up in the show business world. She got her start in casting from working with her well-known and respected Hollywood director father, Jerry London. And she teaches monthly online audition classes, helping actors with their careers and guiding them to make their dreams come true. Her book, From Start to Stardom, The Casting Director's Guide for Actors, is a 411 guide on the business of acting. You can find out more about Lisa at FromStartToStardom.com or through her casting company, London Stroud Casting, at LondonStroudCasting.com. You can follow Lisa on Instagram at Lisa London Casting. So welcome tonight, our very special guest tonight, Lisa London. Lisa, it's so great to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Kathleen. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I know you're a busy woman. I know you've been teaching classes all day and working with actors. So we were so grateful to have you and some of your time and wisdom with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm cast in a couple of movies. So I was in a casting session with little actresses that were 8 to 10 today.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That must have been fun. Oh my goodness,
sure.
That's fantastic.
Thank
Well,
you.
I read your bio, and you are certainly an accomplished woman and done so many things for us, but you come from a long history as well, with your father as well, Jerry London. And so tell us a little bit about your background, though, and growing up in the business a little bit, just to get us started, to get to know you a little bit tonight.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and my father, as you mentioned, Jerry London, he was a very well-known director in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And my dad directed shows like from Brady Bunch to Partridge Family, $6 Million Man, Kojak, Rockford Files. Hopefully,
never heard of those shows.
Well, hopefully people on here know who
little shows.
Some people are like could be younger and go, what? But anyways, he was very I guess, he was one of the most sought off directors in the time frame. And he did a lot of mini series, which are now limited series, right? He did things like Shogun and Chiefs and Ellis Island. And he worked with many, many Academy Award winners, from like Richard Burton and Gregory Peck and, all the Rock Hudson and all these amazing actors. So I grew up on sets. I spent a lot of time with my dad hanging out on sets, which I really enjoyed. But it was it was just part of our life. Like, I'd say to my friends, hey, come with me. We're going over to the set of the Partridge Family today. Like, it wasn't like, it was just what we did, right? So when I was in college in my summers, I would work as a production assistant for my dad. And then when I graduated, I got to, I was a production assistant on this movie that he did called The Scarlet and the Black, which was with Gregory Peck, Christopher Plummer, and Sir John Gielgud, all very iconic actors who are no longer with us. But, and I got to be in Rome on set for 2 months, and it was an amazing experience. And I always knew I'd end up in show business, but I didn't know where and what end of it. Right. And but I always liked actors, and I was always interested in actors' stories and how did they become successful and what happened. And so when we came back from Italy, my dad was doing a pilot, and he said, hey, he gave me the opportunity to sit in on the casting sessions. And those casting directors who were casting the pilot at the time, they asked, what do you think? And I said, oh, this one's really funny. That one's good. Those two be good together. No, that one's not. This one doesn't work. And I had a lot of opinions, which of course I still do. And and then yeah, exactly. And then 3 months later, those casting directors called me, and she said, hey, we've interviewed a lot of people. We think you'd be really good at this. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, we think you'd be really good in casting. And that's how I got started. So it was very much like I you know how you just didn't know that I didn't know that was going to be my journey. But then as I've been in it for many decades, I realized, we all have a path, and I always liked actors. I was always paying attention. I always talked to them when I was on the sets. Yeah. So it seemed it was my journey. So that's how I got into casting.
Wonderful. I want to remind our audience too to please send in your chat room questions. We are going to give away a free mentorship with Sarah Sampolic. So if you have chat room questions for Lisa, we're going to be doing a chat room here in a few minutes. So please send those questions in. Lisa, so I'm going to get right into the nitty gritty of it all.
Okay.
We've got a lot of actors out there on the line, a lot of people wanting to know, how can I nail an audition? What would you tell actors are the 3 maybe top tips that maybe you could share with them to make their audition really pop?
Yeah, that's a really great question that I get asked, I guess, a lot. And, the main things that I would say, Kathleen, for anybody who's listening who are actors, is that you really, first off, no matter whether it's a movie, whether it's a television show, whether it's a pilot, whatever a series, you have to do your research. So that's number one, right? You have to really research, and you have to know what kind of project it is, right? So if it's on television, it's on streaming, you got to watch it, right? That's step number one. Step number 2 of that research is let's say it's a movie or it's a pilot when they're making them for the first time. Then what you have to do is you really have to research the players, like who's the producer, who's the director, who's the casting director, what of their projects that have they done? Have you seen them? If you haven't seen them, you need to watch them, because that's how you learn things about people. And that's how you kind of see what's the director, what kind of style does he like? What kind of style does the producer like? Maybe what kind of tone is this project, right? So number 1 is always the research. It doesn't matter what it is, you must do the research. And also you need to also research character. Like, let's say, for example, you're playing, I don't know, a doctor or something, right? And you go, well, I don't know about this kind of doctor. Say you're playing, I don't know, a surgeon, and you don't know anything about that. Well, maybe you have some friends who have friends who are surgeons, or a doctor, or whatever. You've got to do research, because that's the only way to convey. That gives you an overview of the people, the character. So that's my first one, right? My second one is about making choices. And choice is really up to you. It's up to every actor's creative imagination. And what happens with choice is You've got to look at a piece of material. You have to analyze it. You have to break down that scene, and then you have to decide how you're going to play it. And when you figure out how you're going to play that, that's up to you, right? We normally send out a little short character description for each role, but that's not very much, right? And sometimes if it's for leads or supporting players, you know, when we get down to callbacks, you'll get scripts, but you don't get a lot except like a couple pages of scenes.
Right.
So you have to really come up with, how are you going to play this? How am I going to do this? And I always tell actors, when you're going to, you know, make a choice, you should make something outside the box. So, you know, like I say, if I'm reading 50 actors or I'm seeing 50 actors tapes, though 50 actors, 45 of them are going to do it the same way. They're all going to do the same, but maybe there's 5, maybe there's 6, maybe there's 8, you know, I don't know, that maybe made a different choice. So I always tell actors, you know, take a risk, do something outside the box, but do it within what the character would do, right? So that's number 2, is about making the choice. And the third thing to really go for is, I feel whether you're self-taping or, you know, you're on Zoom or you get to go in person, you know, you really just have to be a person. You know, it's really, every scene is about a conversation in some way, right? So you got to be your person and bring your unique personality to the role. So that would probably be my third one. If I was going to say, bring your personality into a role and have fun creating it however you would like. So those would be my 3 that I would say for the moment.
Great. Those are wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things too that I remember as an actress when I was also a full-time actress for many years in Hollywood was to look at the page number of the side that you were given. Is it at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the show? And sometimes that also gives you a little bit of a clue sometimes as to what's happening in the story and what may be happening to that character and how that character might fit into that.
Absolutely. That's yeah. I mean, sometimes, you know, you get like, you know, certain shows will give you, like, if it's for Marvel or something, they don't even give you real sides. So, you know, they're
it's hard.
Yeah, so it's tricky, but it's really up to you to create it. And it's your creative imagination, and there's no right or wrong. You see, that's what people think. I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm always trying to figure out what they want, or what the casting director wants, or what the producer or director want. It's like, no, don't spend your time on that. Spend the time on you. What do you want? What do you want to create? Because you should feel good about your audition, right? So it's not what we want, because sometimes they don't even know, and somebody brings something that we didn't think of or they didn't think of, and we're like, oh, wow, that's so interesting. And that's the guy who gets the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love that what you talked about choices, because you're right. So often you're going to get, you know, of the 50 people you're auditioning that day, you may get 45 of them all the same, but somehow or another, those 5 that stand out can really stand out. And so bringing your own personality in there and your own connection to that role is so key.
The connection is so important. It's that is it. It's the connection and what you bring to that character. You know, that's really what it is all about. It's about the human connection. Don't forget. For sure.
Yeah, I always say it's not about acting. It's about being, right? Being that character and becoming.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk a little bit. We may have some directors watching tonight and some writers watching tonight. So my husband's a director, producer. And so I know he always was challenged sometimes, because in many of the classes and the way he was taught as to become a director and what he was studying, he didn't always learn how to work with actors well. And sometimes you, as the casting director, are the one that can really make that that role come to life for that actor in so many ways. How have you worked with directors sometimes? Because they'll walk in and sometimes the casting director knows what's really great out there, but the director's going, I don't even know what's good, or I don't even know what I really want. Are there some tips for to working with some of the directors out there to help them cast that right person?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think that especially when you're working with directors who are newer, and I would say one of the most important things on that is that you have to trust your casting director's instincts. Part of our job, I feel, as casting directors is to, we see potential in actors. And so sometimes we have to help others to see that potential. And they might not always see it because, maybe they're just looking and it has to be right in front of their face, or maybe they're like, wait, I don't get it, or I don't see it exactly. So part of our job, I feel, is to help them to see the light with certain with actors, right? And to educate them, especially when you're casting people that are maybe up and comers, or who are going to be stars, or people who are maybe outside the box, anything like that. It's really a education step. And I feel that hopefully when a director hires a casting director or producer, you want to work with somebody that you guys have a good collaboration, because movie making, television, anything you do, it's very collaborative. And you want to have a good collaboration between producers, directors, and your casting directors. And you want them to trust you and trust your instincts, because we see a lot of actors that have a lot of potential that go on to be stars. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and I also think for directors who are just starting out, or if there's, or newer into that area, it's really important to understand, have they, taken a class where you've been in a room with actors and gotten a chance to direct them, or, there's a lot of classes out there where there's actors and you could go in as a director and do scenes with them. So you kind of get into getting skilled at that, and also my dad, interestingly enough, when he was first starting out as a director, he took a psychology class to understand the psychology behind how to deal with actors and how to get them to work with them in a way that was very beneficial to both of them.
Yeah, that's so true, because it's so true about the psychology behind what's going on behind the character and the choice. And that goes back to the choice question we were talking about earlier, and making choices that they're making from the perspective of their own psyche going on, what's going on in their heads.
Yeah.
So really smart.
And it's also about how to work with them, right? Because if you understand things about that, that's what my dad would always say, it's understanding how to work with them to get the best performance out of them. And, I feel like my dad was still is a very nurturing guy. He was a very nurturing director. So the way he worked with actors was very in that vein, right? So I feel like that rubbed off on me.
That's great. I mean, I love I know that a lot of casting directors kind of get into this machine of, okay, next. And, you're watching, but I love, Lisa, how you are so sensitive to the actors that are out there and so helpful. I know you've got a great reputation for that, and working with the actors. Sometimes you can see that potential coming in, and just readjusting the scene a little bit, allowing them to work is so wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. We try to do everything we can to make them it's already sort of a nerve-wracking process for the actors, so that we try to do whatever we can to make them less nervous,
Yeah. Well, rejection is really hard. And I know that, that's one of the things that the actors are having to deal with. As an actress myself, I know that I was rejected a lot more than for roles than I was ever given one. But in fact, I've read a statistic recently that most actors will audition for about 100 roles for every time they will actually get one. So when they're first starting out, especially in commercials and things like that, when you're going out regularly. And so dealing with rejection is really, really hard. And how have you learned? I mean, even you yourself as a casting director, you have to audition for getting, the job yourself to cast and dealing with rejection. How have you worked through the process, or helped actors work through the process of rejections? Can you talk to that subject a little bit?
I mean, it's, here's the thing. It's a business. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts with other actors, who are very successful, right? And they all talk about that, about the rejection and how I just listened to a podcast of Aubrey Plaza, and she was saying, she'd gotten rejected for roles all the time. And this person says that. And, I feel that you have to treat, and I know this is not easy, but you have to treat every audition as a chance to act. And you do it, and you make your choices, and you do your homework, and you do your research. And then what you do is you have to go, okay, next, you know what I mean? And you have to learn how to go, wow, you might have really wanted that one, and that might have stung a little, but you really have to let it go and move to the next one. And I feel that, this is a business that's it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So I listened to this, a reel or some little thing that Bryan Cranston talked about, right? And I forgot if he said 30 or 40, but he said he was out here and he was doing all these, he was working and he was like getting guest star in these roles and that role. And it wasn't until I think he said 30 or 40, I forget which age, where he finally landed the lead role, of the dad in Malcolm in the Middle. And then it was 10 years later when he landed the role of Breaking Bad. And he said this advice, which I thought was great. He said, if you're coming out to Los Angeles or wherever you are now, because you can be anywhere, he talked about it. He said, if you're going to come out here and say, okay, I'm giving it a year, that's the wrong attitude, because you're either in it for the long haul or you're not. And it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it takes what it takes to get there. There are actors and actresses that didn't start acting till they were 50, 60, whatever, or they got their big break when they were 6 years old. You know what I mean? So if you're in this,
Olivia Dukakis was that way.
If you're in this game, you're in this game for the long haul. And I feel like it's hard. Believe you me, I've been rejected from jobs that I really wanted. So you just have to learn how to let them go. I also think it's important that besides, you're actors and you're working on your craft constantly. And that's important, whether you're in class, whether you're watching movies and television shows, whether you're reading books, whatever you're doing, not 24/7, but you're always working on your craft as an actor. But besides that, you have to be a person. Like if you like to go do things, go play tennis, basketball, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Sing, dance. You want to be a person. So you have another outlet, right? If you get a rejection, okay, today, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get a massage. I don't know, right? I'm gonna
hair done.
I'm gonna go to watch that movie. I'm gonna go have dinner with my friend. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's all important to try to help. And the last thing I'll say, it's important to have a really good support system. You know, a support system is really important, because you want to have people in your life that support you and are there for you when you're having a bit of a rough time. If it's hard for you and you're getting rejected and you're like disappointed, you want people that are there to support you and encourage you. And I think that's really important. You don't want those people that tell you, oh, you should give it up, it's too hard anyways.
Right. Which is why you need influence women, right?
Totally. Absolutely. We need a support
Influence
group.
women.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's very involved. It's great to be involved with this group and to be involved with women who are supporting each other. I think that's an amazing thing. And creating together, you know,
Yes.
that's a really great thing.
Yeah. And I love what you said too about just getting out there and doing something else. You know, I years ago as an actress, I took a class with Uta Hagen.
Oh, yes.
And she, for those of you who don't know, is probably one of the most iconic early on actresses of all time. She was amazing. And so I asked her at one time, I said, you know, even as an actress, I was raising an actress at home. I have a daughter who's in the business and she's raising an actress right now, even as well. So, you know, the acorn doesn't fall too far from the tree, so to speak. But I asked Uta, I said, you know, how can I keep my instrument, which is, you know, your body, what you're going on inside, how can you keep that strong? And how can I teach my daughter, even at the time, what are the things I can do to feed my daughter even that into that instrument, so she's also in the business young ways. And you know, here's Uta, she's sitting in her chair and puffing on her cigarette with her little puppy dog in her arm, you know, at the same time. And she's thinking and she's going, well, I'll tell you what, she said, if it was me and I had a daughter, or if it was me and I was just sitting around waiting, she said, I would go experience everything there is in the world, you know, go to the opera, go see how they put out fires, you know, go see how they operate on things, go take them and let them experience anything and everything, because that's what feeds you as an actress.
Right.
That's what feeds you for the character that you're in. And that's what we were talking about earlier. That's what makes these choices come out a little bit different from someone else's, because you've been a part of this unusual situation. You know, go jump out of an airplane, or go take a hot air balloon ride, or do something weird, you know. Learn how to make dumplings, you know, we did that with Influence Women recently. So
that sounds fun.
but
it's true what you're saying, because all the life experience that you have on whatever, doesn't matter, you know, your age, but any life experience, that is going to come into play when you're acting. Yeah. At some point it comes into play. It's always, life is about, and acting, it's all about experience. And how do you feel about things? And what are those emotions? And what are those attitudes? And what is that? What's happening? You know, that all comes into play when you're acting, for sure. So you should definitely live life and experience life, for sure. You know what I mean?
Talk to me too about redirecting actors. You know, early on, I think a lot of actors feel like when a casting director stops them, then they're redirecting them, that they've done something wrong. And actually, I learned as an actress that is actually, you as the casting director want them to get the role. And so when you're recasting them or redirecting them a little bit, you're actually helping them, because you see that potential coming out a little bit. Talk about how you redirect an actor in an audition.
Well, for me as a casting director, like when I work with actors, which I do a lot, like I do a lot on Zoom now, even for like, I'm doing more Zoom readings, you know, and when I redirect them, I see things, you know, I see, okay, hey, I can tweak this moment, or try this, or let's try this, or I have an idea and this could be interesting. You know what I mean? So I'm always thinking of ways to make the audition pop more, or, you know, stand out more. How do I tweak this moment, you know? And also that's one thing, Kathleen, but the other thing too, I give people redirection to see what they do. Do they listen? Do they take it? Because I also know that I've been in many casting sessions with directors where they'll give direction and actors do the same thing they did the first time compared to the second time. So they didn't change it up at all, right? So a lot of times directors will give an actor direction to see if they can take it, because when you're on a set, you know, on a set, they're not doing a million takes normally, unless you're working on certain movies with certain directors. But it's very much like, you got to come to the set. This is what Tom Hanks said this in one of those reels I saw. And he said, he likes to come to a job with a lot of ideas. He goes, it doesn't even mean I'm going to use all those ideas, but come with ideas, because if that didn't work, we're going to try this one, we'll try this one. So I feel like that's part of it. Like a director is the same, like, oh, wait, I got an idea. Let's try this. Okay, that could be funny. Okay, let's try this. Same with us. We're doing the same thing. Cast going, let's try this. Okay, that's good. Oh, that makes it funnier. Oh, that makes it more emotional, whatever. So we're always trying to help an actor make the performance stronger, or see that they take the direction. And we're your advocates. And we are 100%, casting directors are there to help, support, and we want you to do well. Because if you do great, then that's a role done.
Absolutely. Well, talk a little bit too. I mean, things since COVID has really changed things up for actors now. I mean, they're doing a lot more of this Zoom auditioning online.
Yeah.
And how has that kind of changed your perspective? And maybe give some tips to the actors and how that they can make that audition pop on a Zoom when you're not face to face with that casting director.
Yeah, we're definitely in a different world, right? Like, see, here's the thing. Let's talk for a minute. I'm going to back up for 1 sec. Self-taping was around before the pandemic, right? Because we would self-tape actors from, if we were doing some project across the country, or when we did Hannah Montana, we saw 1,200 girls, and those came in on VHS tape. So that has always been around, right? I don't think it's going away. And it does give actors opportunity. Like, we're casting a movie right now in Minnesota, one's in North Carolina, so we can see actors for leads anywhere, because they're not shooting, they don't have to be LA based, right? So that's one aspect of it. So there's advantages to the self-tape. And then now I like to Zoom with actors, because what I miss about the process of being in a room is the interaction with actors. I love the human connection, obviously, and I love being with actors. So when you Zoom, I'm getting to do what I would do in a room, which is tweak a performance, get to see them, get to talk to them, get to see their personality. And I really enjoy that. And the main tips on it is you treat the Zoom auditions the same way you do any audition. You're prepared, you've made your choices, and you've done your research. And if a director says, hey, let's try this, or let's do this, you go, okay, good. And make sure you understand what they're saying and you go for it. The trick on all of that is you make sure your Wi-Fi is working good. That's one of the main things.
And the audio.
The audio is good. It's good. It's good to do your Zoom auditions sort of as your same as your self-tape setups. That's what I would say, if you can. But that's the main thing. It's really about still the engagement. If we're doing it on Zoom, we're talking to you, we're engaging with you, we're asking, I like to talk to actors and find out some stuff about them. So I'm always interested in that. I feel that I'm hopeful that there's going to be more in-person stuff. I really am. And we ask producers and directors about it all the time. But, like I said, they're shooting a movie in Minnesota. They don't have a production office here. So, you know what I mean? They don't have the money that they're going to go, sure, here, go, we'll give you an office. No, they don't have the money for that stuff, right? So I just go, okay, I'll Zoom actor. I'll do Zoom with actors, Yeah. But
well, we did a great webinar recently with Renee Lawless, one of our Influence Women's actresses here, and she's on our advisory board. And she did a whole webinar on how to be a star on Zoom.
Well, that's good. That's good.
You know, she talked about getting a ring light behind you. I've got one here tonight in front of me.
Yeah.
And making sure your audio is right, making sure you've got a great background that doesn't distract you know, from your audition, all of those kind of things. So we're going to be putting that up on the Influence Women's Mentorship page here pretty soon. We're getting that together. So but yeah, all those things are so important in actually making your audition pop, isn't it? Just so important.
Yeah, and that's great that she did that, because your lighting looks a lot better than mine, just so you know. I'm like noticing that, but I'm just sitting by my window with natural light. So that's you know what I mean? So what are you gonna
look great.
Oh, my, thank you. You know.
So we're going to open it up here and for some questions from our chat room. We've got Ayana and Nene in our chat room tonight. And hi, Ayana. Nice to have you with us tonight.
Hi.
Great musical background tonight. We've been talking about how to set things up for backgrounds. And I know you've been monitoring the chat room for us.
Yes.
Some questions that people have been sending in from our chat room tonight that you can.
I sure do. And also, yes, it's a pleasure to be here and to hear all of the tips, Lisa. So we have a couple of questions.
Okay, great.
First is from Ophelia, and we're going into the specifics of auditioning.
Okay.
So how much do casting directors, maybe yourself or just casting directors, that you feel like improv with the sides versus sticking strictly to sides? Do you have a preference on that?
Okay, that's a great, awesome question, Ophelia. So what I tell you about that is, look, nobody's going to kill you if you change a they or the a or and, you know what I mean? Nothing like that. I will say if you add like a button at the end, you know, sometimes, you know, you don't have the last line, or, you know, you just have a reaction, or, you know, maybe you throw in a little line or something at the end. But you have to pay very strict attention to the directions when you get the directions, because there are some producers, directors, you know, Aaron Sorkin's one, who's an amazing writer, director. You don't change his words. That's just the way it goes. Yeah. You don't change certain people's words. They don't like it. And it says in the directions, do not change the copy at all. Do not change the dialogue. So you don't. Now, well, it depends what the project is. You also have to be careful in comedy, because if the comedy and there's certain, you know, it's all about the timing and the beats, right?
Yes.
So if you think your joke's funnier, you got to watch it a little bit on that, right? But I'm going to tell you that it's okay to, you know, if you throw a line in at the end, or you do a little change of word. A lot of times actors will retape their audition like too many times because they maybe missed an a or a than or a the or a this. I'm like, nobody cares. Okay. So that, don't get so caught up in perfection, because that doesn't exist. So you just have to kind of know the project, know who the people are, and know if you can do that. I would not advise to improv an entire script. No. Yeah, you know,
understood.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be super perfectionist with every the and a, but definitely don't choose the most important meat of the audition to freestyle.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't have a problem. Sometimes I'll have an actor who throws in a button. I coach actors. I'll tell them, hey, you know what, do this. I'll throw it because it's a risk, and it's, you know, like a little thing, or I'll have them do like a little, like maybe there's a little prop or something that I'll say, oh, this would be funny. And, you know, they'll do this or something, but you got to keep it simple and don't overdo it. Now, I will say this, I'm doing a comedy movie right now, and we had callbacks with the director and producer, and they had the script, but he told them, okay, now let's take the script, but just go with whatever, like improv it. And then they did, but they were directed to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then also around auditioning as well, There's a question about what type of slates are most effective for you, simple and quick, or with actors with personality, without rambling, of course, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm a big person about your slate having personality. So that's me. That's Lisa. That's me. Some people will say, don't do it. Just, hi, I'm Lisa London. I'm 5'5". I live in Los Angeles, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
What
that.
are the pros and cons of either? Like, what are
I think I'm all about, look, in the world of self-taping, I feel like you got to show personality. So for me, I like to see a little personality on your slate. Like, you speak Spanish, ¿cómo está? How you doing? Have some flair. Yeah. I think it's okay. I've told people to, based on the character, they've said funny little things in the slate. I say you can do that. There are other people that would say, no, never do that. You know what I mean? Okay. So you don't have to go with what you feel for the moment, but I'm all about, in a slate, you got to show personality. I'm not saying talk for a minute, but I think I had one actor, he did this slate and he said, hey, I'm whatever, Joe Smith, I'm making up his name, but hi, I'm 5'10", I live in Los Angeles, and I just had some Chinese food, which was really delicious. I don't know, but it was kind of in the vein of what the character was about. It was funny. So I said, yeah, that shows me the guy's got personality and some humor,
So I love that. And you know what else, Lisa? I agree with you on that. It also shows whether or not you want to, if you're going to be on a set for 10 hours a day with somebody, I want to be around people I like, right? And so a slate kind of allows the casting director and the director both to say, hey, he's kind of a fun person. I'd kind of like to hang with him on a set, so. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, one guy who does a lot of, he gets an actor I know. He did this. I did a talk for him, and he sent me a slate. He played a really scary bad guy, and he did this slate that he zoomed into with his face into the camera and was really creepy. And I was like, oh my God. And I said, what'd your agent say? He goes, well, one of my agents didn't like it, but the rest of them did. But he did. It was in the vein of what the character would do, So yes. It's a personal choice, but I'm always about personality.
Got it. Great. And I have another question for you.
Yeah.
What kinds of classes in your experience do you think are most beneficial for actors to work on? There's, of course, tons of maybe actors training, but do you have any, maybe it's, I don't know, really scene study or, specific character development? I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, for classes, I think I think it's personal as to what each actor is interested in, but I think scene study is great. I think improv's great. I think I'm not promoting mine, but I guess I kind of am, but whatever. But I'm saying I teach audition technique, but see, which is good because I'm teaching you when I do class, from the casting perspective, right? And there's other people that do that where you come, you do the scene and I give you direction and you have to change it up and make different moments. But that's what happens in a room. That's what happens with the director. So I think personally on classes, it's really good to find the thing that works for you. That's what I would say. Whether that's scene study and audition class, whether that's improv, whether that's whatever it is, it's finding the class that works best for you. But one thing I will say is don't go in and try a class for a month and then go to the next one for a month and go to the next one for a month and go to the next one. It's you got to give them a chance, right? Because every class you take, you should take away some learning experience. So whatever that is, everyone, but it doesn't mean you're going to get it all in a month and 3 or 4 classes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, yeah. Kathleen, do we have time for one more question?
One more question. Yeah, one quick question.
Okay.
Yeah, more. I was just going to say one last question.
One last question. How much does social media presence factor into when you're evaluating actors? Do you look at them much, or what?
No, that is such a loaded subject. It's a loaded question these days. And I hope that you guys follow me on Lisa London Casting on my Instagram, because I made a reel about that actually. But I will say this, look, in my opinion, acting, the first and most important thing is your talent. But we do live in a different world. And if we live in a world that it will come up from producers and directors about like, oh, this person has 1.8 followers and this person has 1.4. And if they're both maybe equally as talented, maybe they pick the one who has more because they're hoping that actor will promote the film more to their followers, whatever. Obviously, everything plays factors into getting cast, the types and the ages and the personalities and the genders and the ethnicities, all of these things. And do I say, yes, you should have a social media profile? Yes. Mm-hmm. Should it be authentic to who you are? Yes. And it's up to you what you want to promote to the world, what you put out there. So I try to tell actors, keep it real. Don't buy your followers because it's not necessary. It's really about the engagement. And also, if you get in a movie or a television show or something or streaming that's successful, that's going to boost your social media automatically. So it's about really keeping it authentic to yourself and deciding, what do you want to put out there to the world? And do we look at it sometimes, depending on the project? Yes, not for it's not like we go through a list and go, okay, I'm going to check 100 actors' social media. It's not like that. It's more when you're down to who are the couple people, or who's this, or let's look at this. I mean, I have looked at it. We did do it on another movie I did. And, the one director did kind of a deep dive into the social media, which sort of shocked me. And I don't know, but they ended up it didn't, in the end, who we went with, it didn't affect that, like what they're, you know what I mean? Like how many people they had following them. It's not about that. It's the whole picture, kind of like, what are you branding out there? What are you putting out there? That's what I would say is most important. Like if you want to do a lot of faith-friendly films, maybe you're not talking politics. They're going to be a situation. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, you have a right to say whatever you want. It's a free country, so go for it. I'm not saying that, but just try to think big picture and how, if you want to be able to do all kinds of projects, you have to look at that,
Yes. It does shape perception quite a bit.
And unfortunately it does. And you know what I mean? I never personally ever talk politics, religion, anything on my social media, because it's just like, why? I don't need to get into the noise from this person's opinion and this person's opinion. I don't care about that. I care about putting out my good works and putting out things to help actors for me. So as actors, you should do that too. Put out what you want to put out. It's up to you. You can use your voice for whatever you want. So I'm not saying not to,
Yes. Awesome.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Thank you so much for answering our questions.
Thanks so much. Thanks.